Why, hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to Curious John podcast. I'm unsure of the episode that we're on, but we digress and stay on point. So, told you guys a couple of podcasts ago that I would start with some short intros, telling you guys what's going on and how I'm doing and all this other shenanigans, and doing well. Came back from a little vacay, not really a vacay, it's like 2 days away. I tend to recharge with, oceans, because I'm a water sign. And so it was nice just to kind of get away, to forcefully put myself in a position where I am not going to work. Because for me, work isn't just like, hey, my normal job where I get a paycheck, right? It is everything else I do in addition to that. So if it isn't the job, it's my focus on my hobbies, whether it's the woodworking or whether it's I'm trying to build something or create something, whether in the greater scheme of things, hard to describe because my brain will go different places with creativity. That includes the podcast, by the way. And then it's also all my extracurriculars I do have to do in addition to that, which is, school and the maintenance of my normal house stuff, right? That doesn't go away. In addition to spending time with friends and family and my puppies. And so it all adds up. And there's a lot on my plate, right? But so that means that whenever I get a chance, a spare moment to do something that I can do and I have time to do, I typically jump on that. So what that typically means is that any given time of the day, I'm going from one task to the next. I've often talked about my to-do list, right? My little notepad thing that I write all my tasks and things I have to do, which includes, groceries and cutting the grass and picking up this thing from this store and going to this store and picking up this thing and shipping a package and doing all this other stuff, right? So because there's always so much on the proverbial plate, I'm always running around. And that's no I was going to say hypertrophy. That's not the right word. Hyperbole. That is legitimate, constant one after the other. Like I can go and get up in even a day I'm off from my proverbial job, and I can be busy from the moment I get up nonstop to the moment I lay down. And that is my routine for probably a few years now. So when some of y'all are like, man, I can't get nothing done, I don't have enough time in the day, I'm like, well, what are you doing with your day? I digress. I could take a day off here at my place and try to do nothing, but it's not going to happen. I still have things to do, and my brain will be too focused on what I should be doing. And then you get into this weird, reoccurring cycle of like, oh, I should have done more with my time. Oh, I wasn't efficient. Oh, I didn't do good. And that's like self-deprecating and punishing in a way that doesn't really benefit you psychologically. I forced myself, had an inner battle with myself to get out of town. And in doing so, it takes me away from all my stuff, my responsibilities, my duties, my tools that allow me to create things. And in doing so, I am left to my own devices, which is usually my brain. I did take this recorder that I'm using now, and I did manage to record an episode which you've already listened to. And it was nice to just get away and recharge a little bit. Did I recharge the way I would like to recharge, with a longer time off and maybe doing more extracurricular mix of fun, new experiences, of visually edifying things? No. Like for I think for creative people, and I can't speak too broadly when I say this, like there is something, and I think in human nature really it applies to as well. When you get out of your normal surroundings and you go see something spectacular, beautiful in a way, right? When you go to see a sunset on a beach, or if you go see a crazy mountain thing, or you're in the middle of the forest, there's something primal that recenters you whether or not you want to talk about that being energy, whether you want to talk about that being, mana, whatever you want to call it, spirit, whatever you want to call it, there's something to it. I will never pretend to know what that is, but there seems to be something to it. But to be back on topic, I took a few days off, not many, 2 days, 3 days really, and I just kind of went and got lost, explored, went to the beach, had some nice sunsets, and it was nice. It was a good change of pace. And then you get back and you get this urgency of like, let's get running, let's start running again, and it's totally doable. And I'll get to it again. I won't lose momentum because perspective and my focus is ever close to my heart. And we've talked about that in a previous episode. Go check out Perspective. But that's where I am. That's what I'm doing. Getting ready to re-grind. And as I kind of sit here, I have a couple of podcasts in the books, if you will, in the chamber. How about that? I like that one better. And by now you would have listened to all those, and I'm hoping that I'm a few more in the chamber, if you will, so that I can consistently keep you folks, the ones that care, on a weekly drop. But that's my update. That's my quick little what's going on with me. It feels like a big enough change where I can comfortably talk about what's different versus just saying, I'm grinding. That's all I'm doing. I'm grinding, So that's my update. I hope today's episode is fun and entertaining. You let me know whether or not you enjoyed it. Send me a DM via CuriousJohn. Via LifeGeneralist, because CuriousJohn is a product of LifeGeneralist. Send me a DM on Life, L-I-F-E, Generalist. And let me know what you think. Today is going to be a short one, but an interesting one. Talk to you soon. Yo. Welcome to podcast episode, I'm going to guess 55, 54, something like that. As I talked about probably on the intro, I just came back. Oh, that's some good coffee. That's real good coffee. Shouldn't be drinking coffee this late at night. But as I talked about probably on the intro, I came back from a little trip. And so part of traveling, part of the shitty parts of traveling, apart from dealing with people and rushing and times and whatever, some of the negative parts of traveling is that you always come back to a ton of laundry. I don't know about you folks, especially if you have little ones and you have a family, you travel, you're coming back with like ton of laundry. So I'm like sitting here doing my laundry, trying to maximize my time because that's me. That's my definition of 2023 so far, is me maximizing and squeezing every minute minute I can to optimize the things I got to get done. But not really sure if that was a brag or if that was complaining. I'm going to figure that one out later. But anyways, I'm doing laundry. And I'm sitting in the laundry room, I'm in the laundry room now, so excuse any additional noise you might hear. But I'm sitting in the laundry room, and some of you that do or don't know, I'm going to be in here just for the ambiance of the dryer noise. Can you guys hear this? Anyways, I'm sitting here in my laundry room, and as I was putting stuff away into the dryer and turning it on and doing the little beepity beep and boopity boops, pressing the buttons, I kind of turned around. And one thing I don't do enough, to be honest, I do not take time to really enjoy the things I've created over the years. Some of you are nodding your head right now. I do not do a good job of enjoying things because to me I'm on to the next one. And for a lot of those projects, they're jumping off points to the next one, right? For those of you that follow Sunday League, the podcast, I created like a little backlit panel for them. Well, that was a small education course towards the other light up panel I did for myself later on, a few years later. And for other projects that I'll likely show you in the future, right? These are all education. They're all, you go to school in the first one and everything else gets brought up and bumped up and improved as we continue. So Some of you, recent followers, likely remember my kitchen remodel. But the kitchen remodel is an example of that same technique. The kitchen was only started after I had the concepts and implementations of creating cabinetry, whether it was the complexity of those doors, which are doors that you don't ever see anywhere. They're mitered at 45 degrees in the corners. You don't see doors like that. And if you see it, they're typically fake miters. They're not real. The reason why they don't do that is because it's far more labor intensive to make doors like that when they're really mitered. And people have this philosophy about whether or not there's strength in that joint. I reinforce them. Don't give me too much hassle. We can get into the details if you want via DM. But anyways, I digress. But the first implementation of wanting to do my kitchen, I knew I wasn't just going to jump into the kitchen, especially with my limited woodworking experience. So what I did initially, for those of you that don't remember, is I created this little cabinet inside my bathroom. Inside my laundry room. There's this little nook that was just there, that had pipes coming out of it, who God knows for what. I have no idea to this day. But I wanted to cover up the nasty pipes. Not nasty, but just the not beautiful pipes. How about that? And I wanted to give myself more storage. And also, it was just a sheer excuse to learn about cabinetry, to learn about what makes a cabinet carcass. How do you create a top? How do you create cabinet, the doors themselves? And it's a crazy educational experience. And I look back on those pictures, and I take a lot of pictures about my projects. I take a lot of pictures because for me, it's great to look back on those because there are feelings involved with those pictures. I'll look at the photos sometimes, and I'm like, oh, I would not want to do that again. And that's just because it was so challenging, and the emotions that went through then were anxiety-filled, knowing if I could pull it off, right? Because oftentimes, with a lot of artistic projects, and maybe just specifically woodworking, I can't speak to every sort of artistic endeavor, there are these feelings in the beginning where you're like, oh, this is not good, this is not good, this is worse, this is getting worse. And then all of a sudden it's like, okay, it's getting better. It's getting better. Oh, okay, it looks good. I like it. That's usually the process. So if you're a person that tends to quit very quickly on your endeavors, you have to get past that hump. You have to get past that hump. It's part of the process of creating creative things. You have to be willing to get past that hump. So be patient if you're one of those people that quits traditionally fast to things. But anyways, back to topic. Stay on topic, Curious John. Stay on topic. So, as I'm sitting here in my laundry room, I'm like looking at all the stuff I built, right? The doors have now a different technique to them versus the ones I did in my kitchen. Same look, but just different implementation. I look at the kind of pseudo plywood top that I made with this thick front veneer. I look at the thickness of these doors in comparison to like the ones that I did in the kitchen. They're far thicker, almost even double the thickness. Surprisingly, not any more heavier. And then I also look at, this is where I learned about hinges. How to install hinges, what to look for, the cup size versus the overlay size. I mean, that's where I started learning about inset hinges and overlay hinges. I mean, this was a tremendous education on finishing, on implementing, on just getting away with the fact that walls aren't straight. The reason why most houses have textured walls is because if the texture wasn't there, you would really see how uneven walls typically are. So I did the ghetto thing of like filling in some of the gaps with like caulk, right? Which is not the way to do it. You'd want to sit there and scribe so it fits perfectly, which is a technique I learned after this because I didn't know about it. And so in addition to that, I did like a floating shelf. If you don't know what that is, it's basically like a shelf that looks like it's just coming out of the wall. There's no bracketry that holds it. Like it literally looks like it's just coming out of the wall and drywall was installed around it. Maybe I should post some pictures of this. But anyways, I digress. And I'm just looking at some of these imperfections, right? I see some parts where I definitely know what I did wrong. I look at them and that's the first thing that comes out because I am a half glass positive person. I sometimes have to look at the negatives in order to motivate me to push into the positives. That's how I do things. But I know what I did wrong now, years later into this hobby, and I know what I did wrong now. And most people really won't notice, won't really care. And as I look at this floating shelf, it's compiled of multiple pieces that are just kind of glued together to make it look like one seamless hunk of wood, which is not. And as I look at the edges where I know this is a piece that was filled in here with another piece of wood, like as I look at it, I'm actually kind of surprised. And I'm not one to give myself a pat on the back. I'm quite the opposite. I half glass positive person, so I'm more likely to talk shit about myself to motivate me. But I'm not mad at this. I'm looking at this and there's no gaps. I learned a technique at that time to kind of help push the gaps together, which works perfectly. Like I have to really, really, really stare at this. And even then, I can maybe find some areas that aren't perfect, but man, you'd have to be crazy to do this kind of analyzing if you are not in this trade. And it's fascinating to me because I look at this and it's something that I had no right to try to tackle. This is a project that I had no right to try to continue to do because like it was far beyond my skill set. It was far beyond my skill set. If you would have told me like, "Yay, man, you got to build this. I'll give you a few weeks," I would have been like, "What? What are you even talking about? This is beyond my skill set." And here it is, built, installed. It is been here for over a year at least, probably 2. And it is still holding up. There's really no scuffs. I've been using this top, putting stuff on it. There's stuff on it now. There's little containers of detergent and whatever. They get slid on it. I mean, I cannot urge to you the complexity of this project alone. This had to have a fine finish to it. It had to look like it was made like a professional made item, like your kitchen cabinets would be. That has many implications, especially when you're talking about a unique door design that isn't typically found. I couldn't find any techniques on how to do it. I had to figure this one out. I had to implement hinge technology. I had to implement building carcasses. I have to implement building a top. I had to implement hinges and finishing, which is a whole nother beast. Finishing woodworking projects is a whole other beast. The techniques, the materials, I mean, it's a whole nother ballgame. And it is freaking here. And so some of you are probably thinking like, what are we doing here? Are we just giving you a pat on the back? No, we're not giving you a pat on the back. The thing I want to instill on you, when I said the words earlier, I had no right to try to do this. I had no right to try to attempt this. Sometimes in life, you have to just jump into the deep end. You have to. The fear of the project, the fear of the career move, the fear of the possibilities of what's going to happen in life, that fear is going to take away from your ability to do it. You have to forget the fear and just jump into the deep end. If I would have questioned my skills, if I would have questioned my abilities to pull this off, I would have hesitated. And this thing probably wouldn't be as good because when you hesitate, you make mistakes. Mistakes you can't take back. Yeah, I could have rebuilt it, I suppose. But the point is that in life, this is an analogy for life. I told you I had no right to take this project on. I had no skill set to do it. But I took my time, I implemented a tremendous amount of research, and I thought through my plans. I thought through what the execution was going to be like throughout the process. And I researched some more, and then I planned some more in my head, and then I went and started building. And then I probably did some research in between that because this wasn't built in one weekend. And so what my thought, my tip, my suggestion to you is simply this. Whatever it is that you're holding back on doing, whether it's going to school, whether it's taking that new position at work, whether it's you choosing to maybe get physically fit, or maybe work on your diet, or try to get rid of some medications you're taking. Like, whatever it is, be smart about it. Plan ahead. Plan about how you're going to successfully do this. There's this thing called SMART planning. Google that. SMART is an acronym for something. You can look it up. But there's smart planning. So have a smart plan in place. And then once you've thought it through and you've made this decision that it was going to be a good decision for you to do what you're trying to do, just jump. Jump into the deep end, because that's all you can do sometimes. And as I look at this project, as I look at this thing that I've built with my own two hands and only with my own intelligence and sheer determination at times, I can't help but to smile at the fact that I got this done. And when you look back at those memories, although sometimes a little anxiety filled, right, as I mentioned before myself, man, those memories are fond. Those memories are incredibly fond, because those are the things you'll remember in life. When I'm old, hopefully, if I make it that way, when I'm old and I'm sitting there on my couch thinking through some of these projects, or maybe even going through my folder of project pictures on my phone, if phones are still a thing then, maybe we're just beaming things into our brain. If I look through those images, those are the things I'll have a smile at, and I'll just laugh at myself, like, I was so stupid, but hey, I got it done. You know, and that's life sometimes. Sometimes you have to just jump into the deep end, give it a little bit of thought, make sure it's the right choice, but just say, fuck it. It's time to jump and go. That's it, ladies and gents.